Hi, welcome back to Personal Finance, Chapter 8. As part of the introduction, I want to just share with you today I think one of your most life-altering decisions that you could make with respect to your personal finances, and potentially one of the most difficult ones to make. We're talking about becoming debt-free. And why debt-free? Well, we've talked about this before, that we're a servant to the lender and we don't have the freedom to spend as we may desire. In Proverbs, it says the borrower is servant to the lender. How do we become a servant? Well, a portion of our income is not free for us to choose as to how we are going to spend it anymore, because now the lender owns a portion of that income. We have become a servant to him. We don't have any control over it. And because we sometimes still want and still desire to get things in our life, we have a tendency to overspend. And I just want you to look at the impact of compounding interest. And most people understand this. If you make a one-time purchase of $10,000 on a credit card, and that credit card has 18% interest, which is not out of the realm of possibility. Sometimes they go as high as 24%. And you make the minimum payment of $50 every month on that credit card. Do you know how much you will owe in 10 years? What about 20 years? What about 40 years? Again, this is a one-time purchase of $10,000. You don't put anything else on the credit card. You let it accrue interest and you make the minimum payment. What are you going to owe in 10 years? Well, in 10 years, on that initial $10,000 purchase, you are going to owe $51,000. In 20 years, if you just continue to make the minimum payment, you will owe $270,000 on that credit card. And in 40 years, unbelievable, $7.4 million. Now, of course, none of us are going to allow things to get that out of control, hopefully, but it just shows the effect of debt. It shows the effect of compounding of interest. And so I want to give you 6 steps that are arguably not necessarily easy steps, but they're steps that can allow you to become debt-free in your life. So let's go through these quickly. Number 1 is just transform your thinking to a debt-free mindset. Our society, our culture, especially in the Western world, is not oriented towards this. We don't think about debt. We get offers for credit cards and we say, well, I've got another credit card offer. I must be able to afford to have another credit card. We don't think about the possibility of having 100% control over our money. We automatically assume something I want, I can get it now. I'm not going to sacrifice for it. We need to change the way we think if we want to get debt-free. Number 2 is just to list all your debts and all you own. Why is it important to list all your debts? Well, a lot of times people don't really know how much they owe. I'm talking about credit cards, auto loans. I'm talking about personal monies that somebody may have loaned you. I'm talking about your home mortgage. I'm talking about any debt that you have. And also, list everything that you own. Why do you want to list everything you own? Well, maybe there is something that you can sell. Maybe there is something that you look at and you say, I've been hanging on to this, but I don't really need this. And you can sell it. And when you sell it, whatever monies you get, use it to pay down your debt. You may have lots of guns, and there may be a gun that you have in your rack that you just don't use anymore because you have other guns that you use. Sell that gun and use those proceeds to pay down a portion of your debt. Number 3 is to establish a spending plan and a repayment schedule. Again, this is so vital with respect to just managing your way through this, because if you do not intentionally set about to repay debt, it's not going to happen. It just won't. You want to knock off, and when I go through financial counseling and I'm helping people towards this, I tell them, first of all, make a list of your debts and knock off the small one. So if you have a list of 6 or 8 items, put your smallest ones first and get those out of the way. Why? Because psychologically, when you go from a list of 8 down to a list of 7, down to a list of 6, it has a tendency to kind of snowball psychologically, where you feel like you're finally starting to make some headway. Also, I tell people that if it's a particularly high interest debt, like a credit card debt that you're paying 24% on, you got to get rid of that thing as quickly as possible. And here's the key when it comes to a spending plan. You start to pay down a debt. And let's say the first debt on your list, you're going to pay an extra $50 a month, and you get to that $50 and you get that debt paid off. Well, now roll that $50 a month into debt number 2. So debt number 2 is maybe you were making a payment of $50 before. Now you're going to add $50 to it from debt number 1 that's paid off, and now you're paying off $100 a month. And then when number 2 on your list gets paid off, roll everything, that $100 into debt number 3, and so on and so on. And what you will see is you will begin to start to see an acceleration of the pay down of your debt. I mean, this works also on a home mortgage. If that's the only debt that you have, is you start paying a little bit of extra money every single month to that mortgage, an extra $100. For example, is all of a sudden in 4 or 5 years, you start to see that principal amount start to accelerate in going down. Number 4 step to getting debt free is just explore earning additional income. Sometimes people have the opportunity to make a little extra money on other kinds of side jobs. And when that income comes in, use it to pay down your debt. Don't use it to go out and buy those things that you wanted to buy. Use it specifically to pay down your debt. One big warning that I want to give you about this: you need to guard against impacting your family, because sometimes the drive to make more money can have horrendous effects on your relationships in life. Number 5 is consider a radical change in your lifestyle. And when I talk about a radical change in your lifestyle, consider moving to a smaller house. Consider limiting the number of times a week that you eat out. Instead of 3 times a week, maybe you're going to eat out twice a week. Sell your car and get rid of that large payment that you have. In the next chapter, I'm going to talk a little bit more about car loans. And so it's just something that you need to consider. Make whatever temporary changes are necessary to get out of debt. And number 6 is don't give up. I mean, this is so easy to become discouraged, so easy you just can't see the end of the road. And so people just give up and say, this is the way it's going to be the rest of my life. But consider the long term. Consider what your life could be like 10, 15, 20 years from now, when all of a sudden you have no debt in your life. Wow.